Keeping on the subject, there's a new piece in the Washington Post detailing growing concerns over children's rights being violated by the Trump administration's deportations. The report documents the plight of a woman deported to Venezuela last week who'd been separated from her husband and their 2-year-old daughter. The toddler's now living with her third foster family here in the U.S., while their father is being detained at that mega prison in El Salvador they call Secot. The Trump administration told the Washington Post the child wasn't deported with her mother for the sake of her own, quote, safety and welfare. Investigative reporter for the Washington Post, Silvia Foster-Frau, is here with me in Washington. It is great to see you. It's been a while since we did this, so it's fun to talk about this, and an incredible report that you and your colleagues prepared. The Trump administration is alleging that the father of this child's connected to the Tren de Aragua gang that Camila just mentioned. Is there evidence of that in this case? And how does it explain that the child's been separated from her mother?
Yeah, so the Trump administration has said both the father and mother are both involved in criminal activity. The father, a lieutenant in Tren de Aragua, and they have not provided proof or evidence either to the lawyers or to the Washington Post when we put in the request. So all we have is the public statement that the Trump administration made. And then from there, you know, they took the father and sent him to the mega prison in El Salvador. And the mother just recently was deported without her child. As you mentioned, they said it was for her safety and well-being, although the child's advocate, the Young Center that supports migrant children, had made a recommendation. They looked at the family and basically said, we recommend that this child be reunited with her mother before she gets deported back to Venezuela, but that didn't happen.
And there's no explanation as to why staying with a foster family in the United States is better for the well-being of this child than going with her mother, even if it means going back to Venezuela.
There's no explanation other than that allegation. And what's been really hard in this administration is that there has not been evidence or proof for a lot of these cases of allegations of Tren de Aragua affiliation. So you just have the government's word with nothing backing it up. I reviewed records from Venezuela that showed that the parents didn't have a criminal record there. They were detained as soon as they entered the United States, so there wasn't even an opportunity to commit a crime if they wanted to there. And so you're just kind of left wondering, there's this child that has no immigration status, that's being held in federal custody, is on their third foster family now, and there's no end in sight. The child's lawyers are just trying to figure out what to do now.
Yeah, and whether she could ever get home. So it's like you got to get her home to Venezuela. There's the push to get Abrego Garcia back here to the United States to at least have his due process rights fulfilled. And you and your colleagues also put together this incredible report about the sort of 48 hours around the time that these initial deportations happened to El Salvador, the more than 200 Venezuelans that were sent to El Salvador back in March. What to you was the most surprising thing uncovered by this reporting? And give us a sense of how messy, how chaotic this all really was.
Yeah, so there were two things that really stood out to me. One was when we discovered that there were people who were State Department vetted refugees that had been sent to the Salvadoran mega prison. These are people who went through extensive background checks. They did a year-long application process from outside the U.S. They gave fingerprints. They met in person with authorities. They gave references to family members and previous employers, all so that they could come here as refugees in America. And they were sent to the Salvadoran prison along with, you know, a couple hundred others. So that was really shocking to me. We also found TPS holders, same kind of thing. They're supposed to have this temporary protected status that protects them from removal. And they were, you know, complying legally with these immigration records, and they were sent to. And I think the other thing that was surprising was in this entire operation, just learning some of the details about how it all came about and just how rushed and kind of secretive the entire operation was. So I'll just throw like one detail at you, which was when they sent the airplanes on March 15th, when they were headed to El Salvador, they stopped in Honduras, and there was always a question of why they had stopped there.
You did answer this question. It's fascinating.
Yes, and so what it turned out is that they were so rushed to get these planes out that the Salvadoran government was not ready for them and wanted the commercial flights and airlines to be closed in their airport in El Salvador first. And so those airplanes waited for 4 hours in the Honduran airport, which is only a 30-minute flight to the Salvadoran airport, and waited there for over 4 hours until the commercial flights in El Salvador were closed, the airport was dead, and then they brought in
And the Hondurans were okay with them landing?
I guess so. I mean,
that was what I found interesting, because it drags them into it. And then it also clears the airport so that they could shoot that incredible propaganda video of all of those detainees being rushed off to the prison.
Right. So that part was interesting because some of the officials that we spoke with talked about how Honduras is often a stopping place for actual deportations to Venezuela.
Yeah.
And so that part seemed almost normal, like, oh, they're stopping here to refuel to go all the way to Venezuela, except these flights were not headed to Venezuela, and that was the difference.
It's a great report, WashingtonPost.com. Also details an interesting struggle between Rick Grenell and Marco Rubio and how to handle Venezuela, which is going to be a subplot we continue to follow, undoubtedly. Silvia Foster-Frau, great to see you. Thanks to you and your colleagues at the Post. Congrats on the Pulitzers today, also at the Post down the street here.